Okay, what music did you say we have today?
Oh, we got both kinds. We got country and western.
Welcome to episode 241 of Nerdery Murdery.
Big 241. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows and the ups and downs, the good and the bad and the nerd and the murd. When this episode comes out, it is my birthday week.
That's right.
I will be 55 years old. And
55.
Since I've turned 50, I have co-founded a podcast. You may have heard of it. I started a job with a new company after being in a previous one almost 15 years, so basically starting over in my career. I moved over 500 miles away from where I spent most of my life. I've taken up golf. I've been elected to the board of directors for our country club. I've written a book, Prime Numbers, now available on Amazon. And I'm almost done with the book sequel. Some people slow down after 40, and I seem to have stepped on the accelerator.
Yes, same.
I mean, I don't mean to make this all about me because honestly, my ego doesn't need that. But I just kind of wanted to reflect on this. In the last 5 years, that's what I've done. And I look back on it and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Honestly, I think we both stopped letting our job eat our lives.
Yeah,
both of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I'm in a job I love now, my full-time job. I love it. I love my bosses. I love the people I work with. It's great. I love this podcast. You'd have to. We've been doing it for 5 years. Again, that's that podcast you may have heard of. I love writing. I love doing it. I love golf. I've talked about that so much. Met some really cool people. It's just awesome. So yeah. So I will be 55 the week this comes out. So
55.
Need to send me gifts. I'll let you know. I accept all gifts, big or small. So that's all I got. You got anything you raised up over the nerdy side of the
house? No, that's good. Happy birthday, by the way.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so the idea for this kind of started with one line, and that was she reached down and picked the gun up that lay smoking in his hand. She said, "Father, please forgive me. I can't make it without my man." And she knew the gun was empty, and she knew she couldn't win, but her final prayers were answered when the rifles fired again. I think that line, that is the most Texas thing I've ever heard. So there's a conversation that's been going on for years and years and years in the background that I hate country western music, and I always say, no, not really. I kind of love it. But most of what I hear on the radio is crap, which is why I don't listen to those radio stations. Having said that, there's a lot of country western music songs that affect me on an emotional level. Like I get teary-eyed when I hear them, even though I've heard them hundreds or even thousands of times. And we've explored other genres of music. I'm like, well, let's just do some country western music. I want to put out the good stuff. So that's what this is. This is the good stuff.
Let me put a frame around that. Ziggy says the good stuff. I have to say, as I look through and I'm going to be doing with this, like I've done several previous music episodes, I'm listening to this list live as we go on. I'm trying to keep ahead of him just a little bit and listening to some of the music. You're not going to find Garth Brooks in here. You're not going to find Travis Tritt or I don't even remember if there's a George Strait in here. There's a lot of country music that most people would know, and a lot of this is not. A lot of this I don't know. I do like country music. I have those of you who have gone to my Spotify playlist for Prime Numbers. There's country music in there. I love some Garth Brooks. I really do. There's a lot of different country music I like. But these are kind of a lot of unknowns to me. So it's going to be interesting as we go through this.
Yeah, this is the stuff that I grew up listening to. or a lot of it. And some of it is new. There's some of it that I've heard that I was like, God damn. But a lot of this stuff is the stuff that I grew up listening to because this is what was on. The first song is what that line is from, and that is Seven Spanish Angels by Ray Charles and Willie Nelson. It is a song written by Troy Seals and Eddie Setzer and recorded by Ray Charles as a duet with Willie Nelson. It was released in November of 1984 as a single from Charles's 1984 album Friendship. Charles and Nelson split the verse, with Charles singing the first and Nelson the second. Charles sang the first and second choruses, with Nelson joining for the outro. It was also included on Nelson's 1985 compilation album Half Nelson, where he did a bunch of duets. Seven Spanish Angels was the most successful of Charles's 8 hits on the country charts. The single spent 1 week at number 1 and a total of 12 weeks on the country charts. Setzer had suggested the title Seven Spanish Angels, and he and Seals had written the song as an homage to the Tejano-flavored classic hit of Marty Robbins, exemplified by Robbins' career record, El Paso, down in the old West Texas town of El Paso. Where he finished it, he thought, who in the world's going to do it? Because Marty was no longer with us, and within 2 days, Seven Spanish Angels had been successfully pitched to Willie Nelson. But before Nelson was able to record it, producer Billy Sherrill happened to hear the demo and wanted the song for Ray Charles. Sherrill proposed that Nelson and Charles duet the song after learning of Nelson's having reserved it. Ray Charles and Willie Nelson were really good friends before this, but the recording session kind of cemented this. And the video that I put in this list is from Austin City Limits, where it's the first time they ever sang it in public, and it's basically live of them singing it together, sitting down on a piano. It does sound like a Marty Robbins song if you've ever heard Marty Robbins, which is what they were going for. And again, this is a beautiful song. It's about love and loss, and a couple who's on the run from somebody. I don't know if it's the law or not, but the refrain is, there were 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the fire stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne, and 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. This speaks to me on a deeply, deeply level. It's kind of almost spiritual, but it's also deeply rooted in the West and how Texas is a melting pot of cultures, and I love it. But down to the guitar refrain. The piano's great. The guitar refrain's even better. And you could tell that Willie recorded it on Trigger, which is his old guitar, which I have personally seen up close when I was a tiny, tiny little boy. As old and rough as Trigger looks on the front, if you've ever seen the back of it, it's worth millions because of the signatures that are on it. Most of the people who have signed it are no longer with us. And I saw it in the 70s, again, when I was a very small boy. There's no telling how many more people have signed it since then. Because he collects signatures on the back of that guitar. It's the one with the hole in the front. Trigger. He bought that old Martin in the 60s before he was actually making money. My grandmother, but my mother, the lady who raised me, she was best friends with his first cousin, and they basically followed his career when he was young before he got big. He was in the music business for about 20 years before he really hit big, mostly writing for other people. Or he would make an album, it wouldn't sell, but somebody would record it, and that would sell, and that's how he made his living. Until he left Nashville because he didn't care for the music industry that had sprung up there, and went down to Austin to start making music for himself, and that's when he got big. That's when he released The Red-Headed Stranger. And Ray Charles, who was a diehard fan of country music his entire life. Matter of fact, a lot of the what we consider rock and roll is jump blues and country western music combined. And as he is one of the progenitors of that, he still liked to play a good country tune every once in a while, and this was right up his alley. And the two of them together singing this, oh, fire, absolute fire. Again, from the Spanish guitar to the dance hall piano, because that's what it is. It's a dance hall piano. The bass line is nice. The vocals are great. The subject matter is incredible. I love this song. Jeffrey, what do you think about Seven Spanish Angels?
You can't go wrong with Willie Nelson and Ray Charles. You just can't. Their voices are phenomenal.
Yeah, and they're good together.
I'm not a huge Willie Nelson fan. There's a lot of his stuff I really just don't care for, but he has some really good stuff. This is a beautiful song. I actually would have added another Willie Nelson song in here, and it's not just him. But there's a really, 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 really good song that he does with a few others, and that's The Highwaymen. The Highwaymen. That's a wonderful song. With him, and God, I'm trying to remember who all's in it.
Chris Christopherson.
Yes.
Johnny Cash.
Yes, Johnny Cash, and
I think it's Travis Tritt.
No,
not Travis Tritt.
Not Travis Tritt.
Who are the Highwaymen? It should have been Billy Joe Shaver, but that's not for me to say. It's not Billy Joe Shaver.
No, if you're looking it up.
Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson.
There we go. Yeah. Thank you. That's a wonderful song. It's a great song. I actually would have added this in here because I think it's a really, really good country song. But this one is really good. This one is almost gospel country. The way this song is, it's a very pretty song. It's a beautiful song, and like I said, you can't go wrong with their voices. Wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. And you wouldn't think, because Willie Nelson is a little flat, but for what he sings, he's perfect for it. Ray Charles is the opposite of flat. You wouldn't think the two of their voices blend together really well.
Mm-hmm.
You would be incorrect. It is a perfect blend, especially when there's like this call and answer at the end, like a gospel song, when they're singing the chorus together. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
I'm not sure you can actually talk about how this is a gospel song and use Jesus' name in vain like that in the same sentence. I'm not sure you can do that.
But I can do whatever I like. It is amazing. Amazeballs. Jesus H. Christ in a jumped up sidecar. It's incredible. The next song in our list is The Road Goes On Forever by Robert Earl Keen. Keen was born and grew up in Houston, Texas. As a teenager, he was an avid reader who excelled in writing and literature classes. Keen was a fan of the British rock band Cream and was influenced by country music from artists like Willie Nelson, Norman Blake, Jesse Winchester, Flatt and Scruggs, Bill Withers, Gary Stewart, and Jimmy Rogers. Bill Withers is a country star, even though everybody knows him from Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. He's still a country dude. After graduation from Sharpstown High School, Keen started playing guitar himself shortly thereafter, learning to play classic country covers out of a songbook the summer before starting college at Texas A&M at College Station. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English in 1978 and began writing songs and playing bluegrass and folk music with friends, including his childhood friend and future longtime fiddle player in his band, Brad Duckworth. During his college years, Keen lived with future musician Lyle Lovett. West Textures is an album by Robert Earl Keen, released in the United States in 1989 on Sugar Hill. It is notable for the track The Road Goes On Forever, which has become one of Keen's signature songs and has been covered by other bands, including country supergroup The Highwaymen. A lot of the stuff that they sing is actually by Billy Joe Shaver and Robert Earl Keen. So there is method to my madness for not including the Highwaymen. That is The Road Goes On Forever. Robert Earl Keen is one of those guys that's been around for years and years and years. Like Willie in his early career, like another artist we're going to talk about, Billy Joe Shaver, like Townes Van Zandt, where they would produce a song and it would be a hit locally, but it would not go on to garner a whole lot of fame until somebody covered it. In some cases, the next year, in some of these songs, there's a Michael Murphy song, which I think is actually better after it was covered. But this is his ode to growing up in small town coastal Texas, because that's what it's about. And Robert Earl Keen's kind of flat when he sings, and it's almost like he's in a hurry to say what he's saying. I love that about him. He's probably the only one on this list that does that, because he's just da 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 da. He also wrote a couple of other songs. Merry Christmas in the Trailer Park, which it gets played around here every year, and Kaya del Sudore, which is a song about a fighting rooster. Great tunes. Robert Earl Keen is one of those old guys that's been around forever. I hope he keeps doing it. But what did you think about The Road Goes On Forever by Robert Earl Keen?
I really liked it. I didn't think he was rushing at all. I mean, that song, when I hear that song, the first thing I think is Billy Country. It's very hillbilly country, and definitely it definitely brings in that thought that, yeah, this is about small town. This is from a small town, or even better, backwoods.
Yeah.
Something that I would associate. There's a great scene in the TV show Justified, and it's in the second season, and it's where they're having this party at the bad lady's house. And why have I forgotten her name right now? The family that runs that little small area outside of Harlan. They're selling weed and drugs and everything like that. But anyway, you got a group of guys sitting on a porch playing banjos and a guitar. That's the kind of feel you get with this song. It's just a group of guys sitting on a dilapidated porch somewhere, just playing some music. And I like that song. I like that sound.
Yeah, it's a great tune.
Yeah.
And the road goes on forever, and the party never ends. That tune. Yeah, Robert Earl Keen's definitely one you should get out and listen to. He's been around, again, for a long, long time. You will hear him a lot. These guys also played on college. When I've talked several times about college radio and how it kind of plays everything. Robert Earl Keen's one of those things that gets played on college radio down here. So you'll get a punk rock song and you'll get The Road Goes On Forever. And to me, that's not dichotomous at all. That's just the way it's supposed to be, because they're dealing with the same subject matter, just in a slightly different way. The next song is the song I want them to play when they put me in the ground, and that is Live Forever by Billy Joe Shaver. Billy Joe Shaver, August 16th, 1939 to October 28th, 2020, was an American singer-songwriter. Billy Joe was a prominent figure in the outlaw country genre. He is considered one of the great American songwriters of his generation. He has received praises from Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and many others. Artists including Elvis Presley, Tom Jones, Tom T. Hall, and Johnny Cash have recorded his songs, as well as Waylon Jennings. Waylon Jennings did an entire album of Robert Earl Keen songs, including like Lukenbach, Texas. Live Forever is from his 1993 album Tramp on Your Street. He co-wrote this with his son Eddie, who passed away before him, and Steve Earle, who we will talk about later on in this list. Steve Earle is quoted with saying, Robert Earl Keen is the greatest, or Billy Joe Shaver is the greatest songwriter who has ever lived. And I will say that standing on Bob Dylan's coffee table in my boots, 10 toes down. And apparently there is a story that when he met Bob Dylan at Bob Dylan's house, he actually fucking did it and broke his fucking coffee table. But we'll talk about Steve Earle in a minute. Right now, we're talking about "Live Forever" by Billy Joe Shaver. You fathers and you mothers, try to love one another. Try to raise your children right. Don't let them be forsaken. Don't let them be taken into the darkness. Lead them to the light. Good God. Oh. Yeah. Billy Joe Shaver's "Live Forever." It's one of those ones it'll make you breathe funny. It's deep. It's about a man coming to terms with his mortality and what he wants to leave behind. Now, Billy Joe Shaver was kind of a crazy dude in and around the scene in South Austin. Kind of a wild man, toured all over the country, but he was known as he was known as a country musician's musician. And a lot of these people were interplaying in and around Austin at the time. I kind of agree with Steve Earle. As good as Bob Dylan is, Bob Dylan will never snatch my breath away. Billy Joe Shaver does. And it's not just that. I mean, even some of his more humorous stuff is still deeply, deeply emotional. And I don't know what else you can say about Billy Joe Shaver. The world is a less bright place without him in it. But yeah, Billy Joe is great. I mean, I've sat and listened to interviews with him forever. He was from East Texas, and when he was a little boy, he snuck into a juke joint to listen to, I believe it was Hank Williams play, and he's been trying to play that hillbilly music ever since. He did it for the rest of his life. Billy Joe Shaver is one of those characters from Texas music that you really should get. What's his name? Mike Judge did a semi-animated talk about songs from the road. Billy Joe Shaver was one of those talks. It needed to be because that dude was crazy. I don't know. I don't even know how to talk about Billy Joe without basically quoting his lyrics. Just listen to Billy Joe Shaver. What do you think about?
I'll pick it up. This is a really good song. I like this one. Again, not one I've ever heard before. I love one of the things I like about country is that the best way I can put it, that twang you get. In the string, in any of the stringed instruments, and even in their voices, that twang you get that I think is really cool, which is very symbolic, or not symbolic, but it's very common in country music. Another thing I liked about this song, the Eagles are a band I really, really like, and they also did this very well. Is in the music when it goes into the refrain, and it's that harmony of four people that is just perfect.
Yeah.
Like I said, you'll get that with the Eagles when you listen to them, especially listen to Seven Bridges Road. Perfect example of the Eagles and their perfect harmony. This song, "Live Forever," had that exact perfect harmony when you get there, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. The
Great,
harmony was Eddie Shaver, Steve Earle, and Billy Joe.
great song. Never heard it before. Great song. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's a good one. The next one is "If I Needed You" by Townes Van Zandt. Uh, Townes Van Zandt was an American singer-songwriter. He wrote numerous songs such as Poncho and Lefty, which is in this one of these lists. And "If I Needed You," "Snake Mountain Blues," and "Our Mother the Mountain," "Waiting Around to Die," and "To Live's to Fly." His musical style has often been described as melancholic and features rich, poetic lyrics. During his early years, Van Zandt was respected for his guitar playing and finger-picking ability. He is an incredible finger picker. Much of Van Zandt's life was spent touring bars, music clubs, colleges, folk venues, and festivals, often lodging in a motel room or homes of friends. He suffered from drug addiction and alcoholism, which is what basically took him, and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when he was young. The now discredited insulin shock therapy erased much of his long-term memory. In 1983, Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard covered a popularized Van Zandt song, Poncho and Lefty, reaching #1 on the Billboard country music charts. Van Zandt's influences have been cited by countless artists across multiple genres, and his music has been recorded by performers such as Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, Lyle Lovett, Merle Haggard, Norah Jones, Emmylou Harris, Counting Crows, Steve Earle, Whitey Morgan, Rodney Crowell, Robert Earl Keen, Nancy Griffith, Guy Clark, Wade Bowen, Gillian Welch, the Be Good Tanyas, Richard Buckner, Pat Green, Coulter Wall, Billy Strings, Molly Tuttle, Jason Isbell, Calvin Russell. I'm still going. Natalie Maines, Jason Molina, Michael Weston King, Kevin Morby, Stephen Duffy, Doc Watson, Cowboy Junkies, Frank Turner, Roland S. Howard, Tender Sticks, Cave in America, Charlie Crockett, Tyler Childers, Lost Dog Street Band, the Brothers of Lazaroff, and Marissa Nadler. People love to cover Townes stuff. Townes, again, he's a lot like Bob Dylan in the way that Bob Dylan would write these beautiful poetic songs, but his voice was not as strong. They sound better when other people sing them. I've got the Poncho and Lefty version in one of these lists by Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard because I'm not crazy about the way Townes sings it. Yeah, I like the way he sings "If I Needed You" better because it seems more heartfelt. Townes was one of those guys. I'll give you some background. Townes' family, the Van Zandt family, kind of helped found and build about half of my hometown, Fort Worth, Texas. His family then moved to Galveston when he was about 12 or 13. So he spent his youth in Galveston. He went to school, I believe, in Houston. And after that, he ended up migrating to the Austin area to hit up their music scene. And as Steve Earle often pointed out, old Townes really, really missed living in Fort Worth, but he never really did again. I've got a song. We have a Steve Earle song about that later on in the list, because all of these stories are interconnected. "If I Needed You" is a song written by Townes Van Zandt and performed on his 1972 album, The Late Great Townes Van Zandt. It was covered 9 years later by American country music artists Emmylou Harris and Don Williams as a duet. It was pretty good. And it was released in September of 1981. It was the first single from Harris's album, Cimarron. The song reached #3 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles charts and #1 on the RPM Country Tracks chart in Canada. According to Townes' business partner and producer Kevin Eggers, the song was written about his wife, Ann Mittendorf Eggers. Yeah, Townes Van Zandt was known for writing these quirky little Western songs. And as Jeffrey talked about, the Eagles, they actually popularized a lot of this music genre without people knowing that's what they were popularizing, like with the harmonies and the twang and the stuff. That's all because Don Henley started out in this particular grouping. He was working out of Dallas, not Austin, but he was in that sphere. And as a matter of fact, they moved out to L.A. He moved out to L.A. with a band called Shiloh, and that's where he started the Eagles with Glenn Frey, because Glenn Frey was from Michigan, and he'd never really heard the stuff before. So Townes Van Zandt, again, he's another one of those guys that is a hell of a writer, and a lot of people got way more famous off his songs than he did. But in some cases, it's because they sang them better than he did. Nothing against Townes singing. I like some other people's voices better. Again, except in the case of this song, I think his voice is perfect for this because it's not. It doesn't need to soar. And in some of his songs, like Poncho and Lefty, needs to soar, and it does. What do you think about If I Needed You by Townes Van Zandt?
See, and I'm going to disagree with you. I didn't think his voice was very good on this. I thought he was flat.
Townes Van Zandt was flat when he sang. He like Bob Dylan.
Not like this song. The more I listened into it, I'm like, no, this is definitely not one for me. I didn't like it. And granted, the video you gave, it was a live acoustic set.
Austin City Limits. A lot of these videos are from Austin City Limits.
Yeah, and I would almost think to not do those because I don't think you're quite getting them as they were meant to be heard. I'm so sorry. I wish I had hit mute for that.
You all right?
Yeah. I just didn't like it. It was way too flat. I didn't like just his overall presentation of it. This was a Steven skip for me. Hey, Steven Boster. This was a Steven skip for me on this one.
Townes Van Zandt. Okay.
Yep.
Skipping on Townes.
Yep.
That could be fighting words.
I get
it. His voice is not great. It's like Bob Dylan. I love Bob Dylan, but I like when other people sing Bob Dylan. You know what I mean? I'm kind of that same way about Townes, except for this song. And what's amazing is the Robert Earl Keen song is also flat, but it's delivered better.
I agreed.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. And Townes was also pretty fucked up most of his career too. The next song is actually about Townes. It is called Fort Worth Blues by Steve Earle. Stephen Fane Earle is an American country rock and folk singer. He began his career as a songwriter in Nashville and released his first EP in 1982. Steve Earle's breakthrough album was his 1986 debut album, Guitar Town. The eponymous lead single peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot Country charts. Since then, he has released 21 more studio albums and received 3 Grammy Awards, each for Best Contemporary Folk Album. He has 4 additional nominations in the same category. Copperhead Road was released in 1988, and it is his best-selling single. It peaked on its initial release of number 10 on the mainstream rock charts and his 21st Century Resurgence, reaching number 15 on the Hot Rock and Alternative Songs chart, buoyed by various online sales. The songs have been recorded by Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Lee Von Helm, The Highwaymen, Travis Tritt, Vince Gill, Patty Loveless, Sean Colvin, Bob Seger, Percy Sledge, Daly and Vincent, and Emmylou Harris. El Corazon, The Heart, is the 7th studio album by American singer-songwriter Steve Earle. It was released in 1997. This song is about Townes Van Zandt. Steve Earle was he was doing a small club tour in Ireland when he got the news that Townes passed away. He wrote this song while he was in the bathroom of that bar because he went into the bathroom to compose himself, and he looked up on the wall and he saw that Townes had put his name up there. See, he was amazed that even out of Galway Bay, he could still see signs of Townes, and it makes it into the song. When I listen to this song, I'm not so much thinking about Townes Van Zandt. I'm thinking about the Fort Worth of my childhood, which no longer exists. It is a lament about not being able to be in Fort Worth, which I realize I'm a weirdo and a homeboy. I love my city. I miss my city because there's parts of it that don't exist anymore. And I wish they did. But this song is a lament to that sort of feeling, but for towns and also a funeral dirge for towns as well. Um, and he talks about being all over the world, but even then, you're still longing for Fort Worth. Houston's all right. Amsterdam's okay. Paris really weren't your kind of town, but you hung around with Fort Worth Blues. I, this song speaks to me on a soul level, but it may just be because I'm from Fort Worth. I was born and raised in that town. I don't know if it has the same effect on people who weren't. So, I mean, I have to get some feedback. I know that like Paul is affected by this song as well. I think Randy, again, also born and raised in Fort, but it may just be because that's where we're from. You know, I don't know. What do you think about Fort Worth Blues by Steve Earle?
So Fort Worth, let me talk about Fort Worth for a minute. I am from Fort Worth originally, although I lived in and around Fort Worth for most of my life. I lived north of it in Denton, Texas, but I lived in Fort Worth for most of it. Um, Fort Worth, Fort Worth is a city people come to a lot. A lot. It's still a growing city. I mean, it's growing north into Denton now. Denton's growing south into Fort Worth. Fort Worth is growing west. Fort Worth is becoming massive, and it's going to continue to become massive as long as they've got land to build on out there. But Fort Worth is a mentality that it's hard to describe unless you've lived there. Um, Most people, if you tell them, and this you're gonna find this, if you tell people you're from Fort Worth that are not familiar with the state or the area, most people will say, "Where?"
Dallas.
And you always have to follow it up with west of Dallas.
Yeah.
It's a smaller town west of Dallas. Fort Worth has a pride that Dallas does not. It's the Dallas Fort Worth area with with Dallas and Fort Worth on bookends. All the mid cities in between, Arlington, the smaller cities. You've got smaller cities north and south. You've got some smaller ones to the west of Fort Worth and to the east of Dallas as well. But it's the Dallas Fort Worth area. Most people know Dallas if you say you're from the Dallas area. I hear this all the time here in the Valley. We're 500 plus miles away from Fort Worth, and I'll tell people we came from Fort Worth. And they're like, where? Dallas. We came from Dallas. They know Dallas. Dallas is the big city. Dallas is the metropolitan city. Fort Worth is a metropolitan city, but it's never felt like that. Fort Worth always feels down home. And like I said, it's the place people come to.
If you kids, if you're watching Landman, that's all around
Fort Worth.
That's
all around Fort Worth.
It says Midland. It's not Midland. That's Fort Worth.
It's Fort Worth.
That's what our town looks like.
So that's what Zig's talking about with that Fort Worth feeling. I get very homesick when I see Landman because I do miss Fort Worth. I miss the Fort Worth area, and so get a little homesick. But Fort Worth is a feeling. It's a feeling of belonging that you're not going to get in the Arlingtons and the Dallas, and I'm sure we've got people who live in Dallas that are fans out there that are going to hate me for saying that. Well, that's the old animosity between Fort Worth and Dallas. Fort Worth people don't really like Dallas people. Dallas people don't really like Fort Worth people. It's a very divided city.
It's true.
It's very true. But
fuck them Dallas motherfuckers.
I don't think that Dallasite, and that is the word, have the same sense of belonging that Fort Worthians do. It's something that is hard to describe. Those of you who live in small towns that have that very small town camaraderie will understand this because that's what Fort Worth feels like, even as big as it is.
Yeah, a million people now.
Yeah. So that's what Zig's talking about. That I went way off point to say this. I don't like this song.
You don't like Fort Worth blues?
Nope.
I don't know if we
You
can be
you
friends
you
anymore.
you hit it on the nail head. He sounds too much like Bob Dylan in this song. I don't like Bob Dylan singing. I'm with you. I much prefer Bob Dylan songs as sung by other people. Um, so it kind of turns me off with this song. He's flat in this. Again, I think you did an Austin City Limits one. I would change these Austin City Limits
Actually, the
ones
one
out.
that where he's singing is actually the one of the last nights of the Blue Note in Fort Worth.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering on that. Again, I would give it the same as the Towns Van Zandt. Maybe if I heard the recorded version, not live like that, I might have a different feeling. I didn't like this version. I thought he sounded very flat. I thought he sounded very Dylan. I'm not a fan of Bob Dylan. I'm a fan of Bob Dylan's music. I'm not a fan of Bob Dylan. So there you
There's some other people have recorded this song too.
Okay.
I think Tom
I
T. Hall did.
Yeah, I might want to hear it from somebody else, and maybe I'd feel different about this. But that forward feeling that Zig talks about, yeah, that's there. But yeah, this song in that version, just not for me.
The next song on our list is "In Hell I'll Be in Company, in Good Company" by the Dead South. I think we've actually discussed this song before. The Dead South is a folk bluegrass musical ensemble based in Regina, Saskatchewan. The band was initially formed in 2012 as a quartet by Nate Hiltz, Scott Pringle, Danny Kenyon, and Colton Crawford. Crawford left the band in 2015 and was replaced by studio musician Eliza Mary Doyle before rejoining in 2018. The band played live venues before releasing their debut 5-song 2013 EP. The Ocean Went Mad and We Were to Blame. The 2014 album Good Company was released by German label Devil Duck Records and led to significant overseas touring for the next 2 years. The album single "In Hell I'll Be in Good Company" and its accompanying video on YouTube are credited with contributing to the breakthrough release of the band. Um, the the video for this is them all around in and out of Regina, Saskatchewan, different landmarks for the city. At one point, they're standing in the fountain just snapping fingers, and then they're standing in a field just snapping fingers and playing. Danny Kenyon, the bass player for the song, is actually playing the bass on an upright cello strung around his neck, which is to me is awesome. This is a kind of a bluegrass movement that's going on in Saskatchewan and other parts of. I don't know how to say this nicely, so I'll just say it the way I would say it. It's redneck Canada, because there are parts of Canada that are a lot like the American South, but they have snow. They're very rural, but there's this big folk bluegrass music thing that's going on out there, and it has been going on for 20 years or so. And that's basically where we get the Canadian country artists from, is from that particular movement. These guys are kind of that. I love the singing. Danny Kenyon's a little off, but I like the way he sings. It's kind of humorous, and it's about a couple who are basically killing each other, and like literally killing each other in a fight. And the man saying, "Hey, you know what? In hell, we'll be in good company," because they assume they're both gonna die. It's a wild ass song. Great banjo work. Great, I want to say cello, but it's actually bass work. Um, Good guitar work, and the vocals are outstanding. The lead singer has this sort of gruff uh, delivery, almost a la like the Replacements. But it's also very, very sonically nice, and he's got a good range. I love this one. What do you think about "In Hell I'll Be in Good Company" by the Dead South?
Um, the, Bluegrass country, I thought was using a great term because bluegrass country is what I'm thinking of when I say hillbilly
Yeah,
country
yeah.
is bluegrass. This is really really good. I enjoyed this a whole lot. This is this is the type of music that you hear in Oh Brother Where Art Thou. I love that type of music. This was a really really good song. This one's going into my playlist. Love 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 this song.
In Hell will Be in Good
Yep,
Company. Yeah, you
yep,
like that one?
yep. That one is awesome. Love it.
The next song is Coming Up Empty by Keely Connell. Keely Connell is a Hammond, Indiana-born, Nashville-based American artist, redefining the genre with her unique delivery that has been described as Western Gothic. A blend of somber poetry and Western melodies delivered with her rich and brooding voice. The last few years, Keely has been out on the road with Ray LaMontagna, Madison Cunningham, Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, Ian Noe, Ondara and the record company, and Matty Diaz. She's opened for Robert Earl Keen and even shares the shared. She even shared the stage of Edmonton Folk Festival with Mary Chapin Carpenter, Bonnie Lie Horseman, and Allison Russell. Featured in Spin Magazine, No Depression, and singled out in Rolling Stone's a must-see showcase at American Fest. Her diverse vocal range and vulnerability delivery make Keely Connolly truly an artist to watch. Released on My Own Company. The song was released on My Own Company in 2024. My Own Company is a name of the album that she released. And the name of the song is Coming Up Empty. Coming Up Empty. So this is actually fairly new. Someone turned me on to this, like, oh man, you should listen to this chick. And they played me the song, and I was like, God damn. Um, this is what, a lot of people say that country music is a dead genre as well. Yeah, either they're playing a formula, but they're not doing anything new or different. This is where I would come in and disagree, especially coming out of Nashville, because most of the stuff coming out of Nashville is hot garbage. This is not. This is a girl who's doing it on her own. Again, this is the kind of stuff you would hear on college radio stations or indie radio stations, where they would blend some country songs in with their other type of indie music. That's what this is. This is an indie country song. Um, and I think Keely is amazing, and her vocal delivery is incredible, and she's a damn good guitar player to boot. What do you think about Coming Up Empty by
You're
Keely
right. She is a
Connell?
very good guitar player. She's got one of them shaky voices.
Uh-huh.
As I was listening to it, I'd like to give her a chance maybe with another song because again, this may just be one that it's an acoustic because this was the acoustic set of it. Maybe there's a different way to hear it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was great. As soon as I heard Keely Connell, though, that immediately made me think of someone I would have rather put in this list that I think you ought to give a listen to because you want to talk about the feels with some music, especially that Fort Worth feel. Kathy Mattea. Kathy Mattea is a country singer. She was very, very popular in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I think you ought to give some Kathy Mattea, especially I think you would really like the song She Came from Fort Worth.
Okay.
Great song. And so when I heard Keely Connell, I was immediately thinking of Kathy Mattea.
I always thought Kathy Mattea was a little overproduced.
You're talking about early 90s country though. Think about early 90s country. Country became big
Yeah.
because
Yeah, Live
Garth
Forever was
Brooks.
also early 90s country.
Yeah, you had Garth Brooks and Kathy Mattea was big and George Strait was really big then. Country had a new voice in the early 90s and Kathy Mattea was at it. Was it overproduced? Oh yeah, most of it was. Most of it was. But that was the genre she came from. But yeah, for my dollars, I'd have gone Kathy Mattea here. Especially she came from Fort Worth. That one tugs at the heartstrings for me. What was
I do
another
like a
one?
good song about Fort Worth. I'm not gonna lie.
The other one that tugs at the heartstrings to me to this day, and it was from that same era, is Bluest Eyes in Texas. Love that song. But this one, I, I'm going to give some other listen to some of her stuff because
Yeah, you
she
might
does
try
have a
that.
good
She's really
voice, even
good.
though it's a little shaky. And she is very good on the guitar. But
Yo,
this
yeah.
particular song, not so much for me.
The next song is it's a little hard to find. It is considered a classic of the genre. It is Clay Pigeons by Blaze Foley. Michael David Fuller, born December 18th, 1949 to February 1st, 1989. So he's only 40 years old. Um, Actually, he wasn't even 40. I think he was 39. Better known by his stage name, Blaze Foley, was an American country music singer, songwriter, poet, and artist active in Austin, Texas. Foley was close friends with Townes Van Zandt, was greatly influenced by him. Foley's stage name was inspired by his admiration for musician Red Foley and the stripper and burlesque performer Blaze Starr. Foley was born Michael David Fuller in Malvern, Arkansas. He grew up in San Antonio and performed in a gospel band called the Singing Fuller Family with his mother, brother, and sister. As a child, Blaze contracted polio, and as a consequence, one of his legs was shorter than the other, causing him to drag his foot while walking. He was nicknamed Deputy Dog early in his career. In the spring of 1975, he was living in a small artist community just outside Whitesburg, Georgia. That's where he met Sybil Rosen. Rosen and Foley were in a relationship and decided to leave the artist community together to support his music. He went on the road and performed in Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, and finally he ended up in Austin, Texas. Foley tried to get into songwriting, but after the move, he experienced a lot of career pressure and started drinking more. The bar scene complicated his relationship with Rosen, and it eventually ended. Now, they did make a film about this particular period in this dude's life called Blaze about 7, 8 years ago. It's incredible. What's great is Townes Van Zandt is being played by oh my God, he's another Texas guy. He did like a country punk goth thing back in the late '80s, and he played Townes Van Zandt. Beat So Lonely. The song Beat So Lonely. Hold on. Hold please.
Yeah, no, have
Charlie
no idea.
Sexton. I could not think of his name. Sorry, the noun had escaped me. Um, so Charlie Sexton's actually playing Townes Van Zandt in this, and it was kind of great because Charlie Sexton grew up with Townes Van Zandt. Charlie Sexton was a musician in the late '80s whose mother was associated with this scene, so she got him, and he was really interested in becoming a musician. He got in with a lot of these guys when he was really younger than he should have been. But Charlie Sexton, because a lot of these guys are starting to die off. Charlie Sexton, because he was 15 years younger than everybody else in the scene, um, is one of the last few guys who has a clear memory of exactly how everything went down. So I'm kind of glad that he's getting involved in telling these stories because we don't want them to be lost. The song Clay Pigeons appears on Blaze Foley's 1989 cassette Live at the Austin Outhouse and John Prine's 2005 album Fair and Square. It was written by Blaze Foley, who recorded the song. The recordings were released posthumously on an album like Clay Pigeons. So Blaze Foley, he basically got too drunk to record, except in a few cases where they put him in his element, turned the tape recorder on, and told him to just play. Blaze Foley was known more as a character than a serious musician, but again, in this case, he wrote a song about love and loss, and it is deeply, deeply connected with the Austin music scene and the Texas music scene at large. But it's about traveling. It's about traveling around the country on a bus, trying to find some peace, feeding the pigeons some clay. Again, this is one of those ones that tugs at my heartstrings. What did you think about Clay Pigeons?
This is a really good song. This is the type of country music, number one, that I enjoy a whole lot. It's storytelling.
Hmm.
That's why I like the song "The Highwayman" because it's telling a story throughout time. Is how that one's doing it. But this one tells a real story, and this kind of harkens me to someone else who I really think should be on this list somewhere. Maybe he is, but Kenny Rogers. The thing I appreciate about Kenny Rogers, and I saw an interview with him one time where he talked about that, is he talked about when you want to be successful in music, regardless of your genre, tell a story. Tell a story that people remember and that they can connect to. And that's the real big thing with a lot of country music is you tend to connect to it because Zig talked about, it tearing at the heartstrings and things like this. This particular song is one of those that's that's really, really good. I appreciated this song a whole lot. I enjoyed listening to it a whole lot. This is a really good song, and it does tell that story.
Yeah, yeah. There are some slightly better recordings. Unfortunately, he didn't record a lot.
I thought this
So
recording of it was great.
you like this one? Yeah, this
Yeah.
was actually live. It was they recorded him in, what was the name of the bar? It's a particular one of the bars that was down there. It's big in the scene. Um, Live at the Austin Outhouse, which I think is gone now. Um, but unfortunately, there was a dude who lived up the street from Blaze, um, whose son would come up every time he got his check in from the gut, because he's a retired dude. He's an old guy. His son would come in and basically steal his check.
Mm-hmm.
So Blaze showed up one time and beat that kid up, keep him from taking that old man's check because he was his neighbor and his friend. The next time the kid showed up, he showed up with a pistol and shot Blaze. Blaze walked off. Yeah, Blaze walked off because he thought he was fine. He's like, man, it's nothing. And he ended up dying. Like later on that night, he did not realize he was as hurt as he was. He thought it just like grazed his arm, but it actually hit an artery, and he was slowly bleeding out.
Mm.
Yeah, 1989, man. Right after Christmas, what, February 1st? Matter of fact, the old dude that is, oh, I didn't put that one in there. There was a recording of Towns Van Zandt playing Poncho and Lefty, where the old dude sitting next to him is that dude that was getting robbed. The next song on our list is Bar Song by Shabuzi. This song's new. Well, I say new, recent, just like the Keely Connell. Collins Obina Shabuzi, which spelled Chibueze, known professionally as Shabuzi, is an American singer and rapper. His music combines country, Americana, and hip hop. Shabuzi was born and raised in Woodbridge, Virginia, in the Washington metropolitan area. His parents are Igbo Nigerians. His father was a farmer in Nigeria who attended college in Texas A&M. He went to school there. In his childhood, he was inspired by hip-hop music, videos on 106 and Park, as well as his father's cowboy style and dress and love of country music. For junior high, he spent 2 years at a boarding school in Nigeria, and in 2013, he graduated from Garfield Senior High School in Woodbridge, Virginia, which is also where Henry Rollins went to school. He played football as a freshman. As a teenager, Shabuzi planned to be a novelist. However, by the time he graduated high school, in addition to earning money from shooting music videos and photography, he also earned a few $100 here and there from music gigs and decided to take music more seriously. Following the release of his first two albums, Lady Wrangler in 2018 and Cowboys Live Forever, Outlaws Never Die in 2022, Shabuzi was featured on two songs from Beyonce's album, Cowboy Carter. He achieved commercial success from a third album, Where I've Been Isn't Where I'm Going, in 2024. And its number one single, a bar song called Tipsy. It was released on April 12th of 2024, which is, again, not that long ago. It's the fourth single from the third album. The song titled Old Town Road by Lil Nas X as it replaced Lil Nas X's Old Town Road as the longest running number one song of all time on the Billboard Hot 100. With 19 non-consecutive weeks at the top of the chart. And outside the United States, Bar Song Tipsy topped charts in Australia, Belgium, Canada, Ireland, Norway, and Sweden, and peaked with the top 10 of the charts. It was nominated for Song of the Year, Best Country Song, and Best Country Solo Performance at the 67 Grammys. He was also nominated as Best New Artist. I love this song. This song sounds like a country song to me, and it's kind of poppy. And most of the stuff I put in this list is not poppy at all. This is probably the poppiest one I put on here. I love this tune. To me, this sounds like country western music. I'm kind of glad that stuff like this is being put out now because it's not following the bro country formula, which is a local radio station did this not too long ago. I'm trying to remember you have to talk about fishing, hunting, a truck, a girl, tobacco use, and drinking and driving on an old road, and cooking chicken, I think. And like there's hundreds of these bro country songs going on that have all of these elements in them. That's all they're about. And you have to have like a rap breakdown. This kind of took that and spun it on its ear. He's like, no, I'm going to do an old-fashioned country song where things are tough at home, so I'm going to go to this bar and have some drinks. And that's what this song is about. What do you think about Tipsy by Shaboozey?
So it's funny you talk about, things are bad at home, so I'm going to the bar. There's a country song that I love. Two of them. Two of them actually that I'm thinking about off the top of my head. One is Toby Keith's "I Love This Bar." I love that song. The other one I can't remember who does it, but it's the rain is it's too hot to fish, it's too hot to golf, but it's too cold at home. I love that song too. Shaboozey, and the only reason I even know Shaboozey exists is during football season last year when they were advertising the country music awards coming up and whatnot, and they were giving the list of names, and I know a lot of the names. I see this name, Shaboozey, and I think I spent 3 days walking around going, Shaboozey?
Yeah.
What the fuck kind of country name is Shaboozey?
It's Nigerian, although he spells it differently. But yeah, that's actually his last fucking name.
But
it's
that's the only reason. That's the only reason I know of
Shaboozey. The fuck kind of name is Shaboozey?
I had not listened to his music. I pulled this one up. This song is great. I love this song, and I want to hear more of him. That's how much I like that song. This song, a bar song, was phenomenal. It's awesome. I loved it.
His other stuff is a little less poppy.
I still want to hear it. I still want to hear it because he's got a really, really good voice. I like his sound. I'm going to give him another listen on some others, but if nothing else, this song, listen to it, get it in your playlist.
The next song is Mind Your Own Biscuits by Casey Musgraves. Casey Lee Musgraves, born August 21st, 1988, is an American singer-songwriter and musician. She began her career in the early 2000s when she self-released 3 solo albums and recorded another album as a member of the duo Texas Two Bits. In 2007, Musgraves appeared on the 5th season of the USA Network singing competition, Nashville Star, where she finished in 7th place. In 2012, she signed with Mercury Nashville and released the hit single Merry Go Round. Her major label debut studio album, Same Trailer, Different Park, won the Grammy Award for Best Country Album and 56 annual Grammy Awards. Musgrave's second studio album, Pageant Material, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 charts and yielded the critically and commercially successful single Biscuits and Dime Store Cowgirl. She released a Christmas-themed album, A Very Casey Christmas, in 2016. Her fourth studio album, Golden Hour, in 2018, was a lament. This is actually a little bit after Biscuits. Was a lament to her hometown, which is Golden, Texas. Our neighbor, Johnny and Rachel spent her summers with her uncle in Quilla. It's right next door to Golden. And she used to see Casey play Coffee House when she was like a teenager. She said she was incredible even back then, and then she got really, really big with biscuits. Mind your own biscuits and life will be gravy. That is the most East Texas thing I have ever heard in my life. Smoke your own smoke and raise your own babies. Because these old women in these little towns, and old men too, they will get all up in your business. Because they ain't nothing to do but getting other people's business. That's what the song's about. So what do you think about Biscuits by Katie Musgrave?
It's a good song, but there's nothing that separated her from anybody else. Again, I go to others I'd have put in here: Kathy Mattea, Dolly Parton, Carrie Underwood. There's nothing that just separates her. She's like just about any other country singer. There's nothing wrong with the song. It's just not one I could pick out of a crowd.
Okay. The next song is, and I ended up was listening to this, and I told Jeffrey I have to put this song in the list. I was like, I forgot about it. It's Cherokee Fiddle by Johnny Lee. Johnny Lee, well, it's actually not by Johnny Lee, it's covered by Johnny Lee. Born John Lee Ham is an American country music singer. His 1980 single "Looking for Love" became a crossover hit, spending 3 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Country Singles chart, while he also appeared in the top 5 of the Billboard Hot 100. It was really big. Lee was born in Texas City, Texas, and grew up on a dairy farm in nearby Alta Loma, now part of Santa Fe, Texas. In high school, he formed a rock and roll band, Johnny Lee and the Roadrunners. After graduation, Lee enlisted in the U.S. Navy and served tour duty on the USS Chicago, a guided missile cruiser. After his discharge, he had his name legally changed to John Lee Ham to Johnny Lee. He played cover tunes at Texas nightclubs and bars throughout the late 1960s. Lee worked 10 years with Mickey Gilley, both on tour and at Gilley's Club in Pasadena, Texas, which is part of the Houston metropolitan area. The soundtrack for the 1980 hit movie Urban Cowboy, which was largely shot at Gilley's, catapulted Lee to fame. The record spawned several hit singles, including Looking for Love and this one, which is actually a cover. Cherokee Fiddle is a song written by Michael Martin Murphey. His version of the song went to number 58 in the Hot Country Singles charts in 1977. The story is based on a fiddle player named Scooter. His real name was Dean Kirk. He was a Choctaw Indian of Irish descent as well. Having taken lessons as a child from Clayton McMission, he played the fiddle his entire life. He once worked with the country music and movie star Rex Allen. In his later years, he played at the narrow gauge train station in Silverton, Colorado. In 1979, the song was recorded by American country music artist Johnny Lee and was part of the Urban Cowboy soundtrack. Now, the reason I put this song in here is because it is the end of an era. It marks the end of the outlaw country phase, because Michael Martin Murphey is an outlaw country person. He's singing about a guy who goes and busks, a real guy who goes and busks in he rides the rail out to Colorado, plays until the weather gets bad, and goes back home to the Choctaw Reservation in Oklahoma. Real guy, really happened. He did it for years. He could actually play Orange Blossom Special upside down. Basically, he would twist himself up and have the fiddle upside down and play Orange Blossom Special, which is incredible. A fiddle, for those not in the know, is either a violin or a viola, usually a viola, keyed up to play country western music or originally Irish folk, Celtic folk music. The reason I did not want to put in music from Urban Cowboy is the problem. So I'll borrow the podback machine again. Imagine a film about a guy who rides a mechanical bull at night who's from a farm in East Texas. Goes down to Houston to work on an oil field, and at night he rides a mechanical bull at Gilley's, and there's a whole big tussle over this girl on who is the best mechanical bull rider. And the farm boy is played by John Travolta. Everything about this film is ridiculous. There's a reason why the soundtrack is fondly remembered and the film not so much, except for Deborah Winger riding on a mechanical bull, which was pretty fucking awesome. The thing is, this film and the soundtrack started that, well, I don't want to say started, but revivified that bullshit country genre that I loathe. I mean, loathe, because it took all the heart out of it. It made it a commodity, and so many people got into the roper subculture because of this film, because they wanted to ride mechanical bulls and dance at Gillies. None of this is fucking real. None of this is accurate. It's all bullshit. It's top to bottom. The only saving grace of this film is the soundtrack is really fucking good. Michael Martin Murphy's song, Cherokee Fiddle, sang expertly by Johnny Lee, is the reason why I wanted to record this, because it marks the end of that. It marks the end of that period of time where the country western music was open and free, and it goes to that period of the roper subculture where it was the same shit every time you heard it, in a different packaging, by somebody singing about girls and boats and fishing, and it's just the same old bullshit. You don't get stuff like Scooter the Fiddle Player, who would ride the rails from the Choctaw Reservation out to Silverton, Colorado, and busk for 6 months and then head home, and then play locally to make his nut while he was there. It stripped away everything that was authentic about it and Hollywoodized it, but not Hollywood. It was supposed to be Texas, but it really wasn't. This and the show Dallas, to me, ruined my culture. That's how I feel about this stuff. That's why I'm so strongly against it, because it ruined my culture, a culture that has been growing and working for 200 years, because it's a multicultural aspect, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. You still have it in like Austin, but the rest of Texas really doesn't have it anymore. That's why I miss Fort Worth, because it doesn't have that culture anymore. It's gone. It's erased. My culture has been swept under the rug because of the roper subculture, which again is all bullshit. None of it's true. And it's the inauthenticity that bothers me the most, because it's like, how the fuck do you know? You don't know. You weren't here. Anyway, enough of saying that. Having said that, this soundtrack is incredible. I just wish it was with a better movie that didn't destroy Texas. That's a long way to go about that. But yeah, this song, Cherokee Fiddle, and he's called Cherokee Fiddle because he learned it from a Cherokee dude, even though he's Choctaw. The original Michael Martin Murphy's version, they bust out with Orange Blossom Special in the middle of it. It's too long. If I want to hear Orange Blossom Special, I'll just listen to Orange Blossom Special. It's beautiful by itself. But Johnny Lee's version in this tune is incredible. And I know a lot of people will say, well, why didn't you do Looking for Love? Because Cherokee Fiddle's a better song. Plain and simple. It's a great song. Nothing against Johnny Lee, nothing against Michael Martin Murphy. It's just, this song's better. What do you think about Cherokee Fiddle?
Hang on a sec. I need to move your soapbox so I can get in here.
Yeah.
Um,
I am so sorry,
no,
but I
don't be,
feel very
don't
strongly
be.
about that.
I know you do. The Roper culture, actually had a big showing at my school.
Uh-huh.
I dated a girl who got into the Roper crowd.
Uh-huh.
She listens to the show. Um, so I think she's going to have some very strong arguments here when she listens to this episode.
That's good. She should send
But
them directly to me.
yeah, um, I wasn't a real big fan of the Roper culture. I didn't like a lot of those people, and I definitely didn't hang in that crowd
Hmm.
because there were a lot of very fake people in that crowd. We had a rodeo team at our
Yeah.
school. A
I'm
lot of
not
those.
talking about those guys.
No. I understand that. A lot of those in the Roper culture or Roper clique had nothing to do with rodeo, had nothing to do with that, with the actual culture behind this. And you're absolutely correct that it was the end of an era because as I listened to this song, and I'm apparently not as familiar with the urban country or urban cowboy soundtrack as I thought I was. I agree with you. I hate that movie. Um,
It's bullshit. It's such bullshit.
I know it is, but I wasn't familiar with this song. But when I was listening to it, I was like, wow, this is a song that could have easily fit in Smokey and the Bandit. Could have
Uh-huh.
easily fit in Six Pack,
Uh-huh.
which is one I love. Again, I love Kenny
Yeah,
Rogers.
yeah,
He
yeah,
tells
yeah.
story with stuff. And
If you're gonna make a country music, we're gonna set a genre about a country film. Why not do Six Pack?
yeah,
They have Rocky Top. Those kids sing Rocky Top.
yeah. Six Pack is a beautiful film. It really is. There's some cheese factor in it and whatnot.
Yeah.
But at its core, it is a very beautiful film. But this is a song that could have easily fit in one of those type of movies. This was a great song. I loved it as I'm listening to it. I'm just really kind of surprised I did not know this one, because obviously when you said it was part of the Urban Cowboy soundtrack, I'm like, okay, that makes sense now. Um, Good song, great pick. I really liked it. Again, on this list, honestly, I think there's things missing here because I do think you need a Kathy Mattea, Carrie Underwood, Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton is great. Kenny Rogers, Toby Keith, Garth Brooks, I think is great in here. What's his name? Hootie.
Darius Rucker.
Darius Rucker. He absolutely belongs in this
Oh,
list.
Darius Rucker's always been a country guy. Hootie the Blowfish was a country band, as far as I'm concerned.
His great stuff. George Strait, Randy Travis. I think there's some big names that
Yes.
if you want to highlight country royalty, we kind of miss some here.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I wanted to highlight the people who were good, not those guys.
Well, some of those are very good.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
George Strait and Garth Brooks are Roper subculture making music.
I disagree with that. Kenny Rogers definitely is not.
George Strait never wrote a song in his life. Everything is a cover.
Definitely is not. Dolly Parton definitely is not part of. I would never
besmirch Ms. Dolly.
Barbara Mandrell. You could put she could go.
Barbara Mandrell's pretty great.
Yeah, I know. And like I said, Hootie, Carrie Underwood, I think are really good.
Yeah.
There was some really good stuff in here. There was some stuff I didn't really care for. I can't wait to hear the second list and see what else is in there. But I just disagree with you that some of the names I said are not good because they have some very good. And why Garth Brooks is one of my favorites, especially because he is in that Kenny Rogers camp that a lot of his music tells stories and tells some really kind of cool stories. It's not Last Summer, it's That Summer. I think it's called That Summer. I love that one. I love Shameless. I love Rodeo. I love The Thunder Rolls. I love a lot of Garth Brooks. So I disagree that they're not good. There was really good in this list. I just think if that we should have some of the bigger names in here to really show people a broad spectrum of country. Like I
I've
think
got some big names in the next one.
okay, because I think you've done that with goth, and I think you've done that with some alt rock that we've done is really showed the
The
breadth. So
breadth.
so
Yeah, there's more. There's more here.
okay.
I can tell you right now, there is no Garth Brooks.
I know there's not, and I think that I think that's a shame. Most people know him from Friends in Low Places. I don't even think that's his best song. I love that song. I don't think it's his best song. I think that Summer is one of his best songs. That is a beautiful song about, he sings it as if it's him. I don't know if it was him or not, but about a young man who goes to work on a farm for a summer and ends up having an affair with the widow that he's going to work with. And it's really kind of a beautiful song, and you should hear that one. I really like that Summer. But this is a good list. There is some good representation in here. I can't wait to get to the second list. So yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
All right. Do as I do. Go to the YouTube playlist, check them out, see what you think about them.
Yes.
We'll be back next week for part 2 on this, but for now, we will step over to the murder side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Wikipedia, the FBI website, Southern Poverty Law Center, Find a Grave website, and ABC 30 Fresno. And this is the story of Joseph Paul Franklin.
Joseph Paul Franklin.
So when people think of serial killers, they usually imagine patterns that are very obvious in hindsight. You know, there's usually a trail, a signature, something dramatic enough that demands attention. But most of the time, that's not how it starts. Sometimes it starts very quietly. Sometimes it starts in a place that doesn't make headlines. Sometimes with a victim who is quickly forgotten. And tonight, we're in Alabama. And we're not here because this is where the most bodies were found, and not because this is where the worst violence occurred, but this is where it began, was in Alabama. In the late 1970s, Alabama law enforcement investigated a murder that looked random. There was no clear motive and no obvious suspect, and no reason to believe it was anything more than a tragic, isolated crime. What no one knew at the time was that they were looking at the first known act of a man who would go on to kill across the United States, a man who did not seek attention, who did not taunt police, and who did not stay in one place long enough to become familiar. His name was Joseph Paul Franklin, and Alabama was his proving ground. Today, I'm continuing on my A to Z journey across America's serial killers. Each episode I do is going to take us to a new state. Again, I'm not trying to sensationalize violence, but to understand how these cases formed, how they were missed, and how they shaped the systems meant to stop them. We finished Alaska, and now we're in Alabama, and this is where one of the most dangerous ideological killers in American history took his first steps. Joseph Paul Franklin was born James Clayton Vaughn Jr. in 1950 in Mobile, Alabama. His childhood was unstable almost from the beginning. His parents divorced when he was young. He bounced between homes. There was no consistent authority and no lasting sense of belonging. By outward appearances, there was nothing really remarkable about him. He wasn't particularly violent as a child. He wasn't known for cruelty to animals, and he didn't display the kind of behaviors people expect when looking backward for warning signs. That's the whole McDonald triangle that we've talked about that I think is a thing. We had Johnny Trevisani on, the author, and he doesn't think it's a thing, and he thinks that's been proved false over and over. I disagree with that. I think there's a lot to this, but this one didn't have those. What he did develop early was isolation. He struggled socially. He felt rejected by his peers, and he internalized humiliation very deeply and quietly. And over time, he began looking for an explanation that made him feel powerful instead of feeling small. That came in the form of ideology. As a teenager, he became fixated on white supremacist beliefs. He consumed racist literature obsessively and not casually and not in passing, but with an absolute devotion. These were beliefs that didn't erupt suddenly. They hardened in him slowly and reinforced by confirmation bias and grievance. In Franklin's mind, the world wasn't unfair by chance. It was unfair by design, and he believed he knew who was responsible. By his early adulthood, he had fully redefined himself. He legally changed his name to Joseph Paul Franklin, intentionally choosing the surname Franklin as a tribute to Benjamin Franklin and what he believed represented, quote, pure American values. This wasn't symbolism for others. It was a message for himself. Franklin wasn't seeking fame and he wasn't seeking chaos. He believed he was on a mission, and Alabama is where that belief quietly crossed the line from thought into action. By the late 1970s, Franklin was no longer just consuming ideology. He was living it. He drifted constantly. He had no stable job. He had no permanent address. And he moved through towns the way some people pass through weather. And this mattered later because at the time, no one thought twice about it. He bombed a synagogue in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in July. Later that year, no one was hurt, but the killings soon began after that. Many of them were sniper shootings. In 1977, in Madison County, Alabama, there was a young interracial couple who was shot while jogging in a public park. There was no robbery, no argument, no warning, just gunfire. The victims were Cheryl Smith, who was white, and Ted Fields, who was black. They were engaged, they were unarmed, and they were doing something very ordinary. Law enforcement initially treated the crime as a mystery and not a message. The scene offered little to work with. No witnesses saw who the shooter was clearly, and there was no obvious motive that fit conventional categories. The killings were brutal, not theatrical, and were efficient and detached. At the time, the idea that this was the opening act of a serial killer's career didn't register with anyone. There was no reason it should have. Alabama had seen violent crime before. This looked like another tragic unsolved double homicide. But what investigators could not see yet was intent. This was not rage and this was not panic. This was not personal. This was a rehearsal. Franklin later confessed to the murders. He stated plainly that he targeted the couple because of their interracial relationship. In his mind, this wasn't murder, it was enforcement. And this distinction for him was critical. Serial killers driven by compulsion often escalate because they lose control. Franklin escalated because he believed he was succeeding in his goal. So there was no immediate pursuit, no national alert, no pattern or connect, and Franklin left Alabama the same way he entered it, quietly, unnoticed, and satisfied. And because the crime was treated as isolated, no one was looking for him when he crossed state lines. Alabama didn't just mark his first known kill, it taught him something very dangerous. Not only could he do this, but he could get away with it. After Alabama, he didn't linger. He didn't revisit the scene. He didn't talk about the crime. He didn't show signs of stress or guilt. Instead, he just moved on. He traveled constantly, often by bus or hitchhiking. He blended easily into the background of American highways and rest stops. No permanent address meant no predictable pattern. No community meant no one noticed when he disappeared. And this mobility is what became one of his greatest advantages. At the time, violent crimes were still largely investigated within local or state silos. Jurisdictional sharing was slow, like we talked about in Alaska. Databases were limited. Patterns that crossed state lines often went unnoticed unless they were dramatic or frequent. And Franklin understood this very instinctively. He didn't kill people he knew, and he didn't return to the same city repeatedly. He didn't leave messages or symbol behind. Instead, he chose distance. I kind of wonder, as I talk about this, if Israel Keys didn't take some points from this, because that's exactly how Israel Keys did too, and how he got away with it so long. Franklin favored long-range attacks, sniper-style shootings, public places where victims were visible, but the shooter was not. A park, a sidewalk, outside a building, the weapon mattered less than the method. He wasn't interested in control in the initial sense. He didn't want to dominate his victims up close. He simply wanted to erase them from afar. This made eyewitness descriptions very vague and made timelines very fuzzy, and allowed him to vanish before anyone understood what had happened. Each successful escape reinforced the same lesson he learned in Alabama. He didn't need to stay and he didn't need to explain. He just needed to keep moving. He arrived in suburban St. Louis and picked out Brith Shalom Kenseth, Israel Synagogue, from the Yellow Pages. This was October 8th, 1977. There was a bar mitzvah that ended, and guests were in the parking lot when Franklin opened fire from a grassy area nearby, killing Gerald Gordon, who was 42. Law enforcement, meanwhile, were chasing shadows. Different states investigated what appeared to be unrelated shootings, different victims, different circumstances. But what they didn't yet recognize was that the randomness was intentional. Franklin wasn't sloppy. He was very patient. And every mile he put between himself and Alabama made him harder to see and more confident that no one ever would. For a lot of serial killers, violence is often driven by impulse, fantasy, or compulsion. But for Franklin, it was by belief. He didn't see himself as out of control, and he didn't describe his actions as urges he struggled to resist. He described them as choices that were necessary. His white supremacist ideology gave him something most killers lack, which was a moral framework that justified violence. In Franklin's worldview, his victims were not individuals, they were symbols. They were stand-ins for what he believed were corrupting the nation, interracial couples, Jewish individuals, public figures he associated with civil rights. And this belief system removed empathy from the equation. When you convince yourself that your target represents a threat rather than a person, guilt at that point becomes irrelevant and remorse is unnecessary. Franklin wasn't killing for pleasure in the way people often imagine serial killers do. He was killing to send a message, even if no one understood at the time. And that made him especially dangerous because he didn't escalate emotionally, he escalated strategically. He chose his victims carefully, often after observation. He selected locations that allowed escape, and he planned exits before he ever pulled the trigger. In later years in interviews, Franklin spoke about his crimes with chilling clarity, but not with excitement, not with regret. He spoke about them with conviction. This ideological certainty also complicated profiling. Traditional serial killer profiles often rely on emotional instability, sexual motivation, or a need for recognition. But Franklin didn't fit neatly into any of these categories. He didn't want fame and he didn't contact the media. He didn't insert himself into investigations. And in fact, attention to him was a liability. The less anyone noticed him, the better. Because his killings appeared scattered and motive-free, law enforcement had no reason to assume they were connected. Franklin's belief system didn't just explain the actions to himself, it shielded him from detection and allowed him to keep moving, killing, and disappearing. For all of Franklin's planning and movement, there were moments when everything nearly ended more than once. He was stopped by police during traffic stops, questioned for suspicious behavior, reported by citizens who felt something was off, but each time the same problem surfaced. There was nothing concrete to hold him on. Franklin often carried weapons, but in eras and places where gun ownership alone wasn't enough to justify an arrest, he appeared calm, polite, and unremarkable. And because his crimes were spread across jurisdictions, no single agency saw the full picture. One officer might see a drifter, while another might see a man with extreme views. A third might see someone odd but not illegal. No one saw a serial killer. Tips came in sporadically. Witnesses described a man who, quote, might have been there. Composite sketches looked like thousands of other men, and Franklin understood something critical about law enforcement psychology at the time. If a crime doesn't fit a pattern, then it isn't treated like one. So he avoided routines and avoided familiar places and avoided staying long enough to become memorable. In some cases, Franklin later admitted he was questioned only hours or days after a killing without officers realizing it, and those moments mattered. Each near miss reinforced his confidence. Each release confirmed his belief that he was smarter than the system. And really, perhaps most dangerously, each failure to connect the dots allowed him to refine his approach. He learned what drew attention. He learned what didn't. He learned how close he could come without crossing a line. Franklin wasn't invisible. He was just underestimated. As long as he was treated as an individual incident rather than part of a larger threat, he remained free to continue. He wasn't stopped because a single case file finally broke open. He was stopped because time, chance, and persistence finally intersected. In 1980, Franklin was arrested in Kentucky after a series of events unrelated to his earlier killings forced law enforcement to look more closely at him. Once he was in custody, the facade began to crack, and what followed wasn't a dramatic confession or sudden collapse. It was methodical. Franklin just began talking. Over
of
time,
course. It's like the Winston Wolfe thing. You got a bad tail light out? Is there something I need to know?
Exactly.
Because we don't want to get caught.
Right.
And if we get caught, you're going to get caught for something stupid, and that's what's going to get you caught for something else. And this dumbass got caught probably for speeding.
Yeah, over time, though, he confessed to multiple murders across the United States. Some were already known, others had been cold for years, and a few had barely been investigated beyond initial response. But he spoke without remorse and without hesitation. He also admitted to shooting and wounding civil rights leader Vernon Jordan and Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flynt, who has been paralyzed from the waist down since the attack in 1978. In Franklin's mind, he was documenting accomplishments, not crimes. But confessions didn't mean closure. Many of the cases Franklin claimed responsibility for lacked physical evidence. Some victims' families were left in limbo, unable to receive official confirmation, yet unable to move on. In court, Franklin was convicted of several murders and ultimately sentenced to death. He was executed in 2013 at age 63. And by then, his ideology had already outlived him. And that may be the most uncomfortable truth of this case. Franklin wasn't an outlier who vanished when the system finally caught up. He was an early example of something that would become disturbingly familiar in the decades that followed. Alabama wasn't where Franklin committed the most murders. It wasn't where he was caught. It wasn't where his story ended. It was where he learned that he could kill and no one would immediately see the pattern. It was where ideology crossed from belief into action and where violence was tested and confirmed as effective. The danger in cases like this isn't just the body count, it's the silence between crimes. And it's the way that isolated violence is dismissed as random, the way early warning signs are easier to ignore than comfort. Franklin didn't need chaos to operate. He needed indifference. And that's what makes his story that began in Alabama worth examining today. Joseph Paul Franklin was convicted of 8 murders. Investigators believe the true number is higher. Franklin himself claimed responsibility for as many as 20 killings across the United States. Some of those cases were later supported by evidence. Others remain unresolved, suspended somewhere between confession and proof. And that uncertainty really may be the most honest number we have. This episode was part of my ongoing A to Z journey across America's serial killers. And each stop on this journey is not about ranking violence or chasing notoriety. It's about context, about understanding where these stories begin, how they're missed, and why some of them are allowed to grow quietly in the spaces between attention and indifference. Alabama was not where Joseph Paul Franklin's crimes ended. It's not where his ideology was born. It was where he learned that violence could exist without immediate consequence. That lesson followed him across state lines. It shaped how he moved, how he killed, and how he remained unseen. So when we look back at cases like this, it's really tempting to focus only on the outcome, the arrest, the trial, and the execution, but those are endings. The endings are easy. The harder work is looking at the beginning, the overlooked crime, the isolated incident, the moment when something could have connected but wasn't. So as this A to Z journey continues, each state is going to tell a different story. Some are loud, some are sprawling, and some, like Alabama in this case, are quiet in a way that are far more unsettling. The next time we move forward into the next state and another chapter in America's long and complicated history with serial violence. Until then, take care of yourself, stay safe, and remember that understanding these stories is not about fear, it's about awareness. And that's the story of Joseph Paul Franklin.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming along with me on this. Again, I'm appreciating this A to Z journey. I hope everybody else is. I'll have a different case every week. Every week will not be a part of this series. It'll be most weeks. There may be times I leave the A to Z. Next week will be one of those. I'll be leaving the A to Z for a week for a very interesting story. But hopefully you're enjoying the journey and you stick with me on this. I think it's going to be very interesting once we get to the end of it.
I was shocked. I did not realize that they did not. I was looking up this stuff as you were talking. I was like, I did not realize that they did not catch Larry Flynt's shooter until years later.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't either. I wasn't aware that this is who shot Larry Flynt. So
yeah,
found it interesting. So anyway, that'll take us to the end of another recording week. Wow, I lost myself. This will take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find us on nerderymurdery.com. That's our hub. That's our website for everything we talk about. You'll find links, you'll find pictures, and you'll find the link to our YouTube page, which is so often updates.
Yeah, definitely check this one out. And again, for these episodes with the music, the way I would watch them,
like I'm doing,
the same way Jeffrey's doing it. play the thing. When we get to the thing, pause it, go up to the song we're talking about, listen to that, and then unpause it, and then you could follow along with us, like watching the bouncing ball.
Agreed. Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you, sir.
You can also find the link to our merchandise page, where if you wish to show off your Nerdery Murdery fandom, please do consider purchasing something from that. You'll also find the link to our Patreon, where if you wish to become a patron and help us with the costs that are associated with this show, those who are patrons plus our purchases of merchandise help with our uploads, our web space, our storage, everything that's associated with this. So please do consider becoming a patron or purchasing some merchandise, because, hey, in the end, you look pretty good in our merchandise.
That's right. Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. One thing you can do that's completely free and helps us out a lot is leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It helps us, helps others find our content that may be looking for the information that we discussed. And last, but certainly not least, to our good friend Chuck, you can go to sleep now.
Good night, Chuck.
Good night, Chuck. With that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdering.
Cue the music.
Boots up on the desk, screen glow on our face. Got coffee in a Star Wars mug, notes all over the place. Click play on that recorder, mic check, leaning close. Talking fandom and foul play, just two pals and a ghost. It's Nerdery and Murdery, comic books and cold case misery. From capes and dyes to who did what and why they bleed. Yeah, we're laughing through the shiver, let the dark and dorky meet. Nerdery and Murdery, pull up a chair, take a seat. Talking spaceships, talking slashers, 8-bit hearts and crime scene tape. 1 minute it's a dungeon crawl, next it's how a killer got away. Got timelines on a whiteboard right beside a dragon sketch. If you love lore and morbid tales, you're gonna feel at home in this mess. It's Nerdery and Murdery, comic books and cold case misery. From capes and dice to who did what and why they bleed. Yeah, we're laughing through the shivers, let the dark and dorky meet. Nerdery and Murdery, pull up a chair, take a seat. Turn the lamp down low, let the story run long. We'll chase clues through the shadows with a joke in every song. From the back roads to the basement, where the weird and wicked meet. Hit subscribe right along. We saved you a front row seat. It's Nerdery and Murdery,